Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular monthly meeting of the Board of Commissioners held for the purpose of transacting the general business of the Township. Today's date is May 10, 2017. The meeting is being held in the Springfield Middle School Library. Please stand and join the Board of Commissioners in a moment of silent reflection, honoring the servicemen and women who placed themselves in harm's way in order to help preserve our safety. Thank you. Please remain standing and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this point, I would entertain a motion dispensing with the reading of the minutes of the previous meeting as written and recorded in the official minute book of the Township.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote. We are in full complement tonight, and we did not have an executive session at our last meeting, which is, I can't remember the last time that happened. I guess don't need to announce that. I have a special announcement. In addition to the regular business meeting of the Board of Commissioners, the Board will also conduct 2 public hearings to receive public comment on 1, an ordinance amending the wireless communication facilities regulations of Springfield Township, and 2, the transfer of a liquor license from an establishment in Abington Township to 909 East Willow Grove Avenue, Winmore. Any comments or questions related to either the ordinance or the transfer of the liquor license should be held until the relevant public hearing is conducted. The Board of Commissioners may vote to enact the ordinance amending the wireless communications facility regulations and the transfer of the liquor license to 901 East Willow Grove Avenue. So that's kind of confusing. It means we're dealing with 2 different matters. One is the liquor license and the other is amendments to our wireless ordinance. And in order to do that, we have to have a separate meeting. So what we do is all in a matter of a few seconds, we'll suspend the meeting, go into the next meeting, and then we go through that. And then once that's all done, we go through the 2 things. It doesn't take that long. Then we go back into the business meeting and can vote on either or both or neither of those 2 matters. But that's you'll see that go on. And if you are interested in those, there will be a chance for public comment there. So there'll actually be 4 chances for public comment. There'll be the beginning, and the end, and then there'll be in each of those hearings. And all of this shouldn't really take that long. I have a special report on creek erosion at 1506 Church Road. At the April 12, 2017 meeting of the Board of Commissioners, Mr. Staley at 1506 Church Road addressed the Board of Commissioners to outline his concerns for ongoing stream bank erosion in his rear yard caused by the Enfield Run. During the month, the Township investigated potential grant funding opportunities for stream bank stabilization, which the Township has utilized in the past. These funding opportunities are not available for the Staley property as the requirements for the grant funding are not met. The Township engineer reviewed the conditions and provided a report to the Board of Commissioners that the erosion at this location is similar to other properties with creeks adjacent to the properties. Township solicitor has advised the Board of Commissioners that the Board does not have a legal responsibility to stabilize the stream bank of a meandering creek. While the Township will not pursue any stream bank stabilization at this location, Township has offered to assist Mr. Staley in his private efforts to stabilize the stream bank if he moves forward with such a project. And then, this is a little repetitive, what I said before. The Board is now open to comments or questions from the public. So this will be the first one. The Board draws particular attention to those items listed on the agenda this evening. Please be advised that once committee reports begin, the Board can no longer accept questions from the floor. At the conclusion of the committee reports, public comments will again be accepted. However, official action on those issues on the agenda will have already taken place. So therefore, if you wish to comment on an agenda item other than the 2 hearing things, now would be a time. Do we have any public comment? Is yours for the wireless? We'll get back to that.
That's
okay.
Hearing.
Yeah. Come on, you can. Well, yeah. Now would be the time for you.
Now would be the time?
Yeah. Come down and give your name and address.
The
I don't blame you for being confused.
Okay, so I know I met August the other night, so the reason why we're
Name and
here
address.
is...
We need your name and address
Oh,
for
I'm
the
sorry.
minutes.
Carol Lorenz, and street address,
Yes.
175 Roberts Avenue, Glenside.
You're
So
up.
we're here tonight in reference to a building that we purchased, 400 Bethlehem Pike, and it's our understanding that tonight the board may withdraw their opposition to us going from a multi-use building to strictly residential. So that's our understanding of why we're here tonight, that the board may withdraw their opposition. Am I correct in all of this?
Well, the board, depends on how the board votes. The motion that's going to be read is a compromise. It withdraws the total opposition and changes it to 3 units. So it's saying we'll support 3 units, but we'll oppose 4. And I don't know if it'll pass. We don't know how people will vote, but that's the motion. And then if it doesn't pass, then we could discuss it. If nothing happens, then the opposition still stays. But that's the way the motion. Don's got to write motions, and that's the motion that's going to be read.
Okay, so that we'll find out tonight.
Yeah, and that'll happen shortly.
Okay. Is there anything you need to say, Bob? This is the chance.
Well, we were petitioning to have 4 units.
I understand that.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment at this time? Good. At this point, we move on to the committee reports. And am I first? Yeah, I start out as the chairman of the Internal Affairs Committee. The first item, which is item 2 on the agenda, has to do with the start time of our next business meeting, which is June 14th. We usually start these meetings. Hold on, we did get it right here. We start these meetings at 7:30, but that night is the high school graduation, so we always are nicely invited to that, and then we have to leave in the middle of it. So we are about to vote to move our meeting 45 minutes later. We'll start at 8:15 next month. We have to do that in a motion. I move that the Board of Commissioners change the starting time of the June 14th, 2017 business meeting of the board from 7:30 to 8:15 in order to accommodate the community's attendance at the Springfield High School graduation on the same date. That's my motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote. Next, we have the item 3, the May bill listing. I move that the Board of Commissioners approve the April check reconciliation in the amount of $2,062,650.94 and the May bill listing in the amount of $2,661,795.40. That is my motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote. The next item is about the municipal campus. I move that the Board of Commissioners extend the contract with David Blackmore and Associates to perform testing and inspection services at the municipal campus project per their proposal dated March 16, 2017, for a price not to exceed $43,876. Payment will be made for actual work performed, not a lump sum. The reason the contract needs to be extended is threefold. 1, the police administration building was added to the scope of the overall project after engaging David Blackmore and Associates. 2, unsuitable soils were discovered at the new public works site and the police administration site. And 3, the construction phasing was modified after engaging David Blackmore and Associates. That's my motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote. And that concludes my report. So I would like to call on the Chairman of the Public Works and Facilities Committee, Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 2 items this evening. My first item is regarding a bid for Brookside Road. The 2016-17 Community Development Block Grant Project for the Township is the Brookside Road Drainage Improvement Project Phase 2. In summary, the project consists of the construction of new stormwater pipes and inlets, demolition and reconstruction of affected concrete curbs, sidewalks, driveway aprons, and pavement, and the restoration of the affected residential properties. On April 25th, 2017, the Township opened 6 bids received from contractors interested in the project. The bids ranged from a low of $127,800 to a high of $174,245.90. Hearing that, I move the Board of Commissioners award a contract for the Brookside Road Drainage Project Phase 2 to Land Tech Enterprises of Warrington, Pennsylvania, for their low bid price of $127,800. The Community Development Block Grant funding is in the amount of $132,700. That's my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote.
Thank you. My second item on May 4th, 2017, bids were received and opened for the 2017 resurfacing milling program. Invitations were sent to 5 vendors, and the bid notice was publicly advertised. 2 bids were received as follows. Glasgow Incorporated, Glenside, Pennsylvania, for a total bid price of $549,849.90. Joseph E. Suker from Eddystone, Pennsylvania, for a total bid price of $559,007.50. I move that the Board of Commissioners award a contract to Glasgow Incorporated of Glenside, Pennsylvania, to mill and resurface specified township roads for a total bid price of $549,849.90. That's my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote.
Concludes my report, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Shum. Move on to the Chairman of the Community Committee, Commissioner Standish.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 3 items this evening. One concerns the school district project, one concerns a land development on Willow Grove Avenue, and one concerns the Atria Squires Ridge development. So first, the school district of Springfield Township presented plans to install an artificial turf field within their existing high school athletic stadium. Construct related storm water management improvements, resurface the existing running track, and install a landscape buffer on the southwesterly border of the athletic stadium. I move that the Board of Commissioners grant a waiver to the formal land development review process pursuant to Section 512.1 of the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code for the Springfield High School Stadium Turf Field Project. The waiver is subject to the project being built in compliance with 1, a 16-sheet land development plan set prepared by Schrader Group Architecture, LLC, dated January 18, 2017, last revised April 3rd, 2017. Number 2, a post-construction stormwater management narrative prepared by Renew Design Group, dated January 18th, 2017, last revised April 3rd, 2017, and 3, a stormwater management and erosion and sedimentation control report prepared by Renew Design Group, dated January 18th, 2017, last revised March 10th, 2017. That is my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote.
Okay, and next, Lawrence and Helen Amadio, if I'm saying that right, owners of Amadio, owners of 900 East Willow Grove Avenue, presented plans to place a takeout pizza store within approximately 50% of the existing 1,565 square foot building at the subject location. No exterior alterations to the building or the site are contemplated, with the exception of installing landscaping adjacent to East Willow Grove Avenue. Therefore, I move that the Board of Commissioners waive the formal land development review process for the land development of Lawrence and Helen Amadio, 900 East Willow Grove Avenue, related to the installation of a takeout pizza store within the existing building pursuant to Section 512.1 of the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. The waiver is conditioned upon plans prepared by Durkin Associates, Inc., dated October 10th, 2016, and subject to the review and approval of the proposed landscaping adjacent to East Willow Grove Avenue by the Office of the Township Engineer. That is my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Hello. Do we have a second? Well, I will second it.
All right.
Any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Is it fair to ask?
What?
I'm sorry, you were pretty
Yeah.
quick there on the trigger.
Oh.
Is it fair to ask what type of pizza facility it would be? Not that it,
It's just a window, so there's no sit down.
would it be a Domino's, Little
Oh, the
Caesars,
brand, do we know
Pizza
that?
Hut? Is it a
I don't know.
franchise?
I don't know.
It's a local resident
Thank you.
Okay,
chef.
so it's a mom and pop. And the
that's
Amadio,
Mr.
are you,
That's Mr. Durkin.
oh, right, you're Mr. Yeah,
Hi,
you go
Mr.
ahead.
Durkin. I remember you
Sorry.
before. Thank you.
Yeah. And the Amadios are the owner of the property, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And the reason we're giving, I mean, Baird explained it, but in a little more plain English, the reason that this is getting a waiver is the building's staying the same. Everything's the same. Everything's calculated based on square footage. The square footage isn't changing. And there's part of the building isn't really used, and they're putting a window in there. But in our bureaucratic eyes, it is used because we count everything. So nothing's changed. There's no reason the requirements change. It's all by right. And that's why we felt it wasn't necessary to go through the process. The Planning Commission recommended just that. So
Yeah.
and Mr. Durkin did a nice job of setting it up for us. Any other questions? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote.
Okay, and finally, I move that the Board of Commissioners authorize the Township Manager to send a letter to PADEP expressing consent of Springfield Township for the withdrawal of sanitary sewer planning module approvals and the cancellation of the allocation of the sewer equivalent dwelling units for both the Atria and Squires Ridge developments. The reason for the withdrawal of the sanitary sewer planning module approvals is due to Springfield Township selling the township's sanitary sewer system to the Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority after the sanitary sewer planning modules were approved by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. So that is my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote.
And that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Commissioner Standish. We move on to the Chairman of the Zoning Committee, Commissioner Daly.
Thank you, Mr. President. The following zoning hearing board petition will be heard on May 22nd, 2017 at 7 p.m. in the Springfield Township Middle School Library. The petition is for Lorenz Properties, LLC, 175 Roberts Road, Glenside, is seeking a special exception from the zoning code to allow multiple dwelling use and a variance to reduce minimum lot area per family for a multiple dwelling from 5,000 square feet to 3,550 square feet for the property at 400 Bethlehem Pike. The zoning relief will allow the redevelopment of this property located in a D residential district from 2 apartments with a single 2,440 square foot office into 4 apartments with a single 290 square foot office. If I could ask, Mr. President, is that still the petition? I thought the office was
Well, you have a motion in there.
correct. Okay.
The gentleman is saying that the office has been removed.
Yeah. My mic.
No office, that's what I got.
Okay. That's my announcement. Now I have a question for our president. Has there been is that going to be amended at the zoning hearing board, the petition, or the new petition has to be, if they're saying the office is removed? Or is it with,
I don't know how that works. How does that work? Do they just amend it there, or?
Yeah, they can do it ahead of time, too.
Okay.
But
So yes.
okay. Just want to make sure my announcement was correct. Because I was announcing there'd be an office, then there won't be. Okay. With respect to that zoning petition, at the April 12, 2017 meeting of the Board of Commissioners, the board authorized the Office of Township Solicitor to attend all zoning hearing board meetings related to Lorenz Properties, LLC, 400 Bethlehem Pike, Erdenheim, to represent the interest of the Board of Commissioners in opposition to the Lorenz application to the zoning hearing board. Lorenz Properties proposed to convert the existing structure into 4 apartments and 1 business office. Subsequent to receiving notice of the opposition by the Board of Commissioners, Lorenz Properties offered to eliminate the business office for the proposal. The petition I've been given to read is, I move that the Board of Commissioners authorize the Office of Township Solicitor to attend all zoning hearing board meetings related to Lorenz Properties LLC, 400 Bethlehem Pike, Erdheim, and represent the interest of the Board of Commissioners in opposition to any application before the zoning hearing board that includes the conversion of the existing building at 400 Bethlehem Pike, Erdheim, to more than a total of 3 residential units. That would be my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, let me do my best to explain what's going on here. The building is currently mixed use, and these people have bought it and are offering to rehab it and make it nicer. It's a 19th century building. What we saw last month was going to turn it into 4 apartments and a small office. The zoning, if it's all residential, it's based on its size, it's actually only 2 units. So after so our opposition last month would have been for anything more than 2 units, because that was their by right. So we hashed it out on Monday night. They removed their request for the office, so now it was just they wanted 4 where the law was 2. What this motion does is it makes our opposition only so far as 3, so that we would say, we don't make this decision, the zoning board does. They listen to the applicant, they listen to the neighbors, and they listen to us. And this will have us say, we think 3 is a good outcome. So we no longer would oppose 3. This softens our opposition, but it doesn't remove it, which is what they had asked us to do. And with that said, are there any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Sure.
So, if I were to vote no on this motion, would the existing motion, or the existing opposition stand?
If you had 3 friends. Yes. If nothing happens tonight, then we continue to just plain oppose it.
Okay.
Now, if the motion fails, somebody could make another motion to get rid of it, or for some hybrid, to get rid of our but we already are in opposition, and we have to undo that to soften it.
So I made some comments on Monday night, and I may be the only person that agrees with this idea, that I didn't have any particular problem with 4 units. I wouldn't want more than that. For all the reasons, I don't want to go back through them, but it had to do with preserving an existing building and preserving a building in the context, and having something that's there that's better than what was there before, something along those lines. So if I wanted to amend the motion or make another motion to increase that number to 4, could I do that prior to our vote on the 3? Or?
Well, you could, but then we'd be right back where we are. You could just wait, and if the motion fails, we're where you want to be.
The original opposition was to the zoning petition with 4 and an office. So if Commissioner Standish does amend it,
I would amend it to 4,
he still would be removing the office, which was part of the original opposition.
But he could also let this motion succeed or fail. And
That's true.
And then make another motion?
It also, I think, which is the better direction to go? I guess,
Fails the status.
given where we are.
Well, my point is this. My point is this, that if a motion succeeds at 3, and I haven't made a motion for 4,
Right.
without the office, I can't make that motion.
Yeah.
May I make a
because it's-
suggestion?
What?
Maybe the first motion ought to be just to eliminate the prior opposition of the board totally, and then make whatever motions you want to.
And assume we're going to reach some agreement, not end up with something.
Well, assume that something's going to get a majority vote.
So, and which order should we do them in? Do we do the more restrictive one or the less restrictive one?
I would suggest doing the more restrictive one first and see if that gets 4 votes. If that gets 4 votes,
Yeah,
we're finished.
that makes sense, because we're not then going back to the original one. So that makes sense.
I think Baird has already accomplished the fact that he'd like to see that there's another option.
Right.
That everybody know that you
Right.
think there should be another option.
Right.
So
That's right.
you could do it. Jim,
Well, why don't
if they just put 2, if Baird makes his motion now, they have to go back and vote on the first one.
Yeah, if that fails, then we go
anyway.
back to the
Then
other
you go
one.
to his.
But if, Mr. Daly, if you're willing to let him amend the motion, I know I'm sort of ignoring the solicitor, but I think I'm getting to the same spot. If you let him amend it, then we
Has it
can do
been
the...
seconded?
Or,
Why don't we just,
Yes, Pete seconded it.
why don't we just table the first?
Let's vote on it.
that's fine.
Comments?
So do you want to make a motion?
So I
to
make a
table?
motion to table my original motion.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Any questions or comments on the tabling?
Yet that has to pass.
I'd like to make a comment, but not on the motion.
Okay, this is the tabling motion. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay, Baird, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, so I'd like to make the same motion that Jim made, except that I would increase the number of units to 4, so we have no more than 4 units, but would exclude any office,
Okay.
or however else that reads.
Do we have a second for that? Going once? Okay, the motion fails for lack of a second.
Okay, all right.
And now, do you have to make a motion to untable it? How do we get
No,
it?
it's table. I would,
No,
For-
plus two.
Untable.
can I just reference? Yes. So I have a motion, I would reference my previous aforementioned motion that I made prior to Commissioner Standon's motion for the opposition of the Board of Commissioners if there is more than 3 units.
Okay.
So that would be
So
my
we're back to
motion
the
again.
motion, and we're back to, now, Mike, if you have a comment. would
Well,
be-
you have to second.
We had a
my-
second.
No, Pete
Do we need to
stands.
re-second it?
Need to resecond.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
I've lost
We're
the
back
motion.
to where we started. We're back to 3.
3 units.
Just like
To opposing 4, but not opposing 3.
Okay.
welcome to democracy.
He's laughing.
And if we voted down, we're opposing 4, unless we have another motion.
And does this motion include that the solicitor goes
Yes.
to the...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But so the difference is it's softening our opposition from last time to say that if they reduce the density by 1, even though that still requires a relief, we're okay with that. Mike, you want to say something?
Yeah.
Is that in your ward or Pete?
That's
Mine.
Okay.
I'd just like to say that the residents of Springfield Township reserve the right to oppose developments, projects in their neighborhoods. However, what I find appalling is that, as reported to this board Monday evening, is that the developer is trying to garner support for his development by threatening the residents with Section 8 housing rather than to continue with this project as he described to us on Monday evening. To me, that is very disheartening as a commissioner to hear. And to quote one of my colleagues the other night, when you threaten our residents, you threaten the commissioners. If that is in fact true, which I am led to believe, you should be ashamed of yourself to garner support for a project in that manner. Those people reserve the right to oppose the development in their neighborhood. And if that's how you go about getting your petition signed, you should be ashamed of that action.
I think everyone should be informed of the potential, every bit of potential, from one extreme to the other, from restoring a historic building that is only feet away from a sign that says, "Welcome to Springfield Township," that is, it's in deplorable condition.
I understand
Okay?
that. I
So
understand
from that
that.
extreme to the other extreme, I think it's only fair that everybody understands the potential for this building, whether it be good or bad. I think that's only fair that residents are informed of every possibility. Nobody made a threat. It was an informative piece of information to say, you can go from one extreme to the other. Why would you want
So
that?
one extreme is a beautiful restored house, and the other extreme is Section 8
The other
housing.
extreme is a residential neighborhood with a business at the top of the street, and we're trying to make it all residential, and we're being opposed by residents. I think it's only fair that residents have the understanding that if a developer is approached with Section 8 housing, it is the developer's decision, and it cannot be overturned by residents or a township. Okay? So for residents to understand, these are
Understood.
all credentials.
Jeff, Mr. President, understood.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And are you done, Mike? Are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, the only other comments I have is that the presentation itself the other night, I appreciated it. architect engineer gentleman did a great presentation. I had asked at the end of the meeting, encourage the developers to reach out and work maybe with the residents to come up with some type of, maybe some conditions or compromise where maybe they could come up with the 4 units or something between. We haven't received that. What I would suggest to the developers, no matter what happens here tonight, prior to zoning, the zoning board encourages that. If those 3 or 4 individuals, ladies who came out here on their Monday night, took their time out to express their concerns, again, I think the zoning board, just knowing them, and would encourage that type of, discussions prior to the zoning hearing board. I think it's better to have the residents who may be in opposition have some type of agreement with them before they come here. Given some of the statements that Mr. Maxwell made, whether that's true or not, that's what was reported. That's hearsay, whatever you want to call it. But given that nature, I would reach out to those residents before the next zoning hearing.
We tried.
This isn't a debate, I'm sorry. That's my suggestion to that. I will be opposing this motion. I would go back to our original opposition, and maybe that'll help facilitate some discussions with the residents.
Okay.
So that would be my comments.
Do we have any other questions or comments? And again, just to remind people about the process, this is not a decision on the matter. The zoning board makes that decision. We are just one group representing the people that appears there, and this is trying to figure out what our position is. So right now we have a motion to say we're okay with 3.
I don't think that is the motion. I think your motion is to say there's no opposition to 3, not
Okay.
we're okay. The zoning board will make the decision.
Right, but so that right now we're on the record as being in opposition, period, and this is qualifying our opposition a little bit, softening it a bit. So that is the motion we're voting on. If we vote no, we can either entertain another motion or we stand in just simple opposition, because that we'd already passed. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
2 nays down there?
Yes.
Okay, please record a 5-2 vote.
That's it, right, Jim?
Yes, that would conclude my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Daly. We move on to the Chairman of the Cultural Resources Committee, Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm pleased to report that for the month of April, Springfield Township residents recycled 189 tons of material with a householder participation rate of 80%. The net cost for the month was $17,289.35. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. We move to the Chairman of the Human Resources Committee, Commissioner Graham.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 3 itemized agendas tonight. One is for the James R. Folganetti Park. I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt resolution number 1428, a resolution officially naming the open space located in the 400 and 500 blocks of Hemlock Road as the James R. Folganetti Park. Mr. Folganetti was the past township secretary and manager who served Springfield Township from 1949 to 1989. That is my motion, and I wanted to ask you, Mr. President, if you wanted the actual resolution number 1428 read into the record.
I think so. How long is it, Don? Is it
1 page.
Yeah, go ahead. We're fading him. We might as well tell people why we're fading him.
Okay. Resolution number 1428, a resolution to designate open parkland on Hemlock Road, Flowertown as James R. Folganetti Park. Whereas James R. Folganetti was appointed Assistant Township Secretary on April the 25th, 1949, and Township Secretary on January the 1st, 1950, a position he continuously maintained until his retirement on December the 31st, 1989. Whereas Mr. Folganetti was appointed the first township manager of Springfield Township, elected January the 1st, 1970, and also faithfully served in that position until his retirement. And whereas he was dedicated to the concepts of effective open local government through support of responsible elected officials, loyal staff, generous service of volunteers, professional municipal management. And whereas James R. Folganetti maintain the highest ideals of honor and integrity in all public and personal relationships in order to merit the respect and confidence of the elected officials, employees, and the Springfield Township community. And whereas his influence was appreciated beyond his commitment to his community through years of mentoring many municipal officials in that region, founding regional local government organizations, fostering intergovernmental cooperation, and serving on several regional and statewide municipal management associations. And whereas Jim and Rose Fulganetti called Hemlock Road Flower Town home for 32 years, lovingly raising 4 children in Flower Town. And whereas the Board of Commissioners wishes to enhance the recognition, commendations, and sincere thanks to Mr. Fulganetti as set forth in Resolution Number 792 of 1989 for his 40 years of unwavering dedication and devoted service to the Springfield Township community. Now, therefore, be resolved that the Board of Commissioners of Springfield Township, Montgomery County, does hereby designate the 4.67 acres of open parkland on Hemlock Road, Flower Town, as James R. Fulganetti Park. This was unanimously adopted on this 10th day of May, AD 2017, and it is signed by our President of the Springfield Township Board of Commissioners, Jeffrey T. Harbison. That is my motion.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Mr. President, it's my honor as the senior commissioner on the board to second this motion.
Great. Do we have any questions or comments? This is certainly worthy of someone who led the township for 40 years, and I suspect the manager, Mr. Berger, who writes those things, never had one that was easier to write than that.
Actually, flowed very easily.
Yeah,
Right.
more fun, right? Yeah.
Could I just ask, if the motion does pass, which I assume it will, how long would it be till the actual dedication ceremony?
We have to make arrangements with Rose Fulganetti and the family, and actually order a sign.
Sure, and just an estimate.
So a month, maybe?
Yeah, a month,
No,
6 weeks.
The residents who've been asking, I'm just trying to get it done.
And the other thing that's particularly appropriate is that park is a set of houses that we got with federal money that were prone to flooding, and his house was one of those. So it's actually, the park is the house. So no better nexus with that. So any other questions and comments? And Eddie's already promised it's unanimous. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Please record a unanimous vote. I already signed it, so it's a good thing.
Secondly, Mr. President, I move that the Board of Commissioners appoint Carrie Bocelli and Janine DePaul Nelson to new 3-year terms of service as members of the Springfield Township Park and Recreation Advisory Committee. New 3-year terms of service shall expire May the 12th of 2020. That is my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote.
And lastly, the Arthur V. Savage American Legion Post of Winmore hosts the annual Winmore Memorial Day Parade through the streets of Winmore and sponsors a Community Day event in Veteran Park following the parade. I move that the Board of Commissioners grant permission to the Arthur V. Savage American Legion Post of Winmore to use Veteran Park for the Community Day event, including the serving of beer at Veterans Park. Permission is granted conditioned upon the American Legion Post, 1, securing a permit for the use of the park, 2, hiring a police detail to be at the park when the beer is being served, and 3, securing an insurance rider for the day's event, naming Springfield Township as an additional insured. That is my motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote.
That concludes my report, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Graham. We move on to the co-chairman of the Public Safety Committee, Commissioner Maxwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one item this evening. It is for the North Hills Country Club fireworks display. I move that the Board of Commissioners waive provision section 3303 Point 1, Section 12 of the Springfield Township Fire Prevention Code in order that the North Hills Country Club may conduct a fireworks display at the club on Sunday evening, September 3rd, 2017. The waiver is conditioned upon the following. 1. The pyrotechnical firm and the country club shall add Springfield Township as an additional insured on their certificates of insurance for the event. And 2, the pyrotechnical firm and the country club shall work closely with the township fire marshal to help prevent an accident and create a plan of action in the event an accident occurred during the activity. That is my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Questions or comments?
I just have one comment, Mr. President. I know this club has recently changed management, and I also know that we've had a long-standing problem with errant golf balls flying off the tees and ending up in the backyards of many of the constituents along that stretch. I would say that we should withhold the approval at this time. Recommend we withhold our approval of the fireworks display until we have a clearer picture of how the club and the new management is going to rectify this problem.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Are you going to vote no, Peter?
Yeah, I'm going to vote no, yes.
Okay. We have a 6-1 vote.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that second part. Was that a nay?
Do you vote?
I vote nay.
Okay, 5-2. It's a 5-2 vote. The motion passes by a 5-2 vote. And then that concludes your report, Mike?
Yes, that concludes my report.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and out of these hearings. A piece of paper here to get us out of it. Do we?
First, take a motion to suspend public meeting and go into a public hearing.
So I'm making a motion to suspend the public meeting and move into our 2 public hearings. Do we have a second for that?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote. So now we're in the first one, which is the wireless communications one. And then just before I start reading this, the background on this is basically due to technological changes and smaller wireless broadcasting antenna around. We realized last fall that we were perhaps behind the 8 ball in the way our zoning code dealt with it. So we made a quick change to make sure there weren't holes in your ordinance. And then upon further work, we fine-tuned that to make sure that it was what we felt was state-of-the-art in zoning, which is basically we have the ability to regulate these to a point, and it's regulating them as much as we can legally do, and no further. If you go too far, then your ordinance is invalid. So we wanted to make sure we did it right. So this is tweaking that. So this is an amendment of something that we did last year to fill a hole that was created by technology. Now I'm going to read the...
I did a summary to it.
Oh, do you want to do it, or?
I just have a summary of the ordinance.
Well, why don't I read the first 2 things, and then I'll go back to you then.
Sure.
The public hearing is being held in compliance with Section 609 of the Pennsylvania Municipal Planning Code to consider zoning code text amendments to establish regulations for wireless communications facilities. Legal requirements associated with the public hearing have been met by publishing a notice of the public hearing in the April 23rd and 30, 2017 issues of the Springfield Sun. In addition, public hearing notices were posted in the temporary township building and library, 1200 East Willow Grove Avenue, Winmore. Copies of the full text ordinance were available in the temporary township building, the library, the offices of Montgomery Publishing, and the Montgomery County Law Library. Go ahead, Jim.
Ladies and gentlemen, this ordinance that the board will be considering this evening is a result of the Pennsylvania Wireless Broadband Co-location Act, which was enacted last year by the Pennsylvania General Assembly in order to streamline the regulation of wireless communication facilities, or sometimes called WCF. The chairman was correct in saying that the technology got ahead of most of the ordinances in Pennsylvania, in that those ordinances regulated 150-foot tall towers and did nothing with regard to 40-foot tall towers, particularly when those towers were in the legal right-of-way of the municipality, including residential neighborhoods. So as a result, there was a a huge problem in Bucks County, Northampton Township, I believe, where folks woke up one morning. The cable people believed that they were a public utility and started putting these poles up right in the middle of a residential neighborhood, exactly the same height as telephone poles. So as a result of that, the legislature passed, as I said, the Wireless Broadband Co-location Act, indicating an intent to monopolize that particular activity in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Similarly, the federal government also regulates WCFs by virtue of FCC, or Federal Communication Facility Federal Communication FCC Committee regulations. These state and federal laws prohibit Springfield Township from completely excluding WCFs from the township. Instead, the township is limited to regulating wireless towers throughout the zoning provisions of its own zoning ordinances. In an attempt to deal with that act while simultaneously doing as much as possible to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Springfield Township, the board voted to enact a new WCF ordinance on December 14, 2016 of last year. So this ordinance already exists in the township. However, as an understanding of this fairly recent act grew, it was realized that the ordinance passed in December 16 required a few minor tweaks in order to try to fully comply with the act. This ordinance, being considered today, contains those tweaks. The primary revision throughout the WCF ordinance being considered tonight is a clarification that the township zoning ordinance regulates the towers that support antennas and other electronic equipment, and not the antennas themselves, which is restricted by the act and actually prohibited by the act. This change required the modification of many of the terms of the ordinance and is the reason for the replacement of the entire ordinance rather than just minor amendments. Municipalities can only regulate changes to antennas or WCFs that have already been installed if such changes are considered to be substantial changes. The Federal Communications Commission regulations clarifies what constitutes a substantial change, and therefore we had to amend the definition of substantial change in the ordinance. I'd like to emphasize that the ordinance is not intended to encourage wireless companies to install wireless towers in Springfield Township, but instead is intended to establish a regulatory framework within which wireless companies must comply if they wish to install any towers at all of any size in Springfield Township. So the revisions proposed in tonight's amendments are designed simply to comply with the Act and all other laws to reduce the possibility for future dispute or misunderstanding regarding the applicability of the WCF ordinance that already exists.
Great. Thank you. Move on to the Planning Commission reviews. The Springfield Township Planning Commission, in a letter dated May 3rd, 2017, it was noted that the Township Planning Commission discussed the proposed ordinance at their meeting of April 18, 2017, and voted unanimously to recommend enactment of the amended Wireless Communication Facilities Ordinance. The Montgomery County Planning Commission provided a letter of recommendation dated April 4, 2017. The County Planning Commission recommends enactment of the amended Wireless Communications Facilities Ordinance. Today we received a letter from Comcast, which the commissioners have in their folder. That letter states that Comcast asked that we delay this because they are in the middle of negotiating a renewal of our cable agreement and wanted to make sure that didn't run afoul of it. My personal opinion is we can go and move forward, and if we need to revisit it for some reason, we can always do that. But the board can act any way they want. I don't need to read that in the letter, but into the record, but I just wanted to acknowledge it was received in time. And now at this point, we're going to move on to comments. Do we have any questions from the board?
I have a question,
Yes.
Mr. President. This new ordinance is for the singular regulation of these poles within the right-of-way only?
No, sir. ordinance was passed in December of last year.
Okay.
All we're doing with this amended ordinance is clarifying that we are not regulating the antennas because that's been preempted by the federal government and the state government, so we have no power in that area. We are regulating only the poles, their location, and their size.
But is it poles within the right-of-way only?
No, it is poles anywhere.
Anywhere?
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I have one question. Then, if that is the case, based on what the solicitor is saying, why is Comcast requesting a delay on our road?
My understanding, Commissioner Graham, is that Comcast wishes to make sure that nothing they are currently doing or may want to do in the future is impacted by this ordinance. But I think I agree with the chairman's inclination to go forward with this, and if we discover a problem with Comcast in the future, we can certainly address it by further amendment of the ordinance.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? The way this works is a little stilted. We go questions and then we go testimony. We go board in the audience. And we can be a little loose about that. But at this point, I will open it up to questions or testimony from the audience and ask that you keep it to 3 minutes or less. Doctor, will you come down and identify yourself?
Can you sit there?
Are you, yeah, you can stay there if you want. Well, sorry, I was mean to you. I could have moved the mic.
Does this microphone work?
Yes, it's on.
Okay. I want to point out...
Your name and address, please.
Charles Tucker, resident of Orland since 1980. My wife and I own a house on Summit Lane. Now, with all of the nice considerations that have been given to the ordinance, they have totally left out one aspect that's in the legislation. That is the health factor. There's been pretty much total disregard to issues of health. Although that's stated in the ordinance that nothing should be done that diminishes aspects of health to the residents. Now, what I want to do is make a few statements historically about health and issues that have occurred as this radiation has come to pass. I feel that ignorance, greed, politics, and corruption have played a heavy hand in what brings us to this point today. Just for a second, historically, lead, L-E-A-D, that metal, has been used in plumbing and been in households, and people drank water out of pipes that have had, the water's been sitting in lead pipes overnight, and they would drink lead in their water in the mornings. Lead was used in gasoline as an anti-knock feature. The lead in gasoline required valve jobs, 30,000, 40,000 miles on new cars because of the coating of lead on the valve stem seats and the seats in the block. Lead has been used in paint. Historically, it's been removed from paint, I believe sometime in the mid-50s, so it's been around a long time. Tobacco. Tobacco has been sold, marketed, presented as Camel's tobacco, used tea for taste and throat. They almost made it sound smoking was medicinal and encouraged smoking to a large extent. We're all familiar with that. I don't need to go any further. Asbestos was used in a large extent during the Second World War. I don't know how much prior to that, as an insulator and sound deadener, causing lung disease in many of the people who were exposed to it. Now, all of these conditions did not occur like being hit in the head with a baseball bat. They occurred gradually over time to the malfunctioning of the body's health. I feel that microwaves are in the same category. Their use is not like getting hit with a baseball bat, but it does affect tissue, cells, and our bodies. There's significant research indicating that fact. But the powers that be, who want to make money out of the towers and now 5G and the intensity of 5G is quite a bit for the body to take, and they want to saturate our environment with microwaves. Our houses have smart meters, which are generating microwaves 24 hours a day. They also snuck in, there's an electric meter on water and on gas. So our houses have 3 different electronic meters on them. Now, trying to deal with this, we don't have an opt-out feature to the state legislation. It's mandatory for every house in the state to have a meter, except in apparently low-density conditions, which I believe our Republican Representative Gottschall lives in one of those. And he is and has blocked legislation to prevent release from the committee of an opt-out addition to the law. So residents could opt out of having a smart meter on their homes. As a consequence, that is not permitted by the state. When I grew up, there was an expression. It was, put your money where your mouth is. Well, I did that. I ran up close to $11,000 in legal bills because when I refused to let them put a smart meter on my house, they threatened me with power shutoff. I had to get an attorney, went through that, became aware of the necessity of getting an expert witness and additional legal requirements, which would probably run the cost up to about $20,000. But then what PICO was doing, when you were all set with a date and you paid the fee and the transportation and the hotel for your expert witnesses, they postpone. So it wouldn't be on that date that you originally planned for. So then there would be more bills. Well, I caved in. Frankly, I gave up after the $11,000. Not quite caving in, because our meter was 10 feet from our bedroom where we sleep. In order to move it to the furthest corner of the house, an electrician charged me $5,000 to do the electrical work, and then PICO charged me close to $600 to move from their line to the new meter location. So I'm into it for about $16,000. That's when I caved in on this situation. Now, when I presented Monday, towards the end, I believe Mr. Harbison said, well, what do I want from the board? What I'd like from the board is a plan to educate the public, to which PICO and these various other powers that be are maintaining public ignorance, which is what the problems with tobacco, lead, smog. Oh yeah, the latest, this is in Saturday's newspaper. EPA is being sued because of the smog conditions in Philadelphia, which they're not dealing with. Philadelphia Inquirer last Saturday. So we're inhaling garbage. I have COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, as a result of my smoking. I was a smoker a good 25 years. I smoked everything under the sun. In college, it was nice to have a pipe tucked in your jacket pocket, and you look smart with a pipe sticking out of your mouth. I smoked pipe, I smoked cigars. I did everything but chew tobacco. So I've been there, and I've experienced the negative effects of this stuff. Now, what to do? Education is important because the public needs to know how to deal with this. Simple example, cell phones. We're sold on the convenience of cell phones. Now we carry around a cell phone that's on, and it's a small microwave generator. Now kids in school all want their cell phones. You get 30, 35 kids in a classroom. I don't know how many exactly. So you have that many kids exposed in one room, the intensity of that number of cell phones that aren't being used, but they're on and they're generating. Those kids are exposed to that. Their parents want the convenience, that way they can reach their child and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, those phones need to be turned off. Parent can leave a message, kid can get the message when he's at it. I don't know if they still have recess or not, or at lunch, or someplace where they can leave the building and turn the phone on and get messages. But they need to be educated as to the need to modify their behavior to avoid this microwave radiation. The computers that you have in your houses, they're operated on Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is not necessary. We have 2 computers in our house. They're hardwired. We don't have Wi-Fi in our house. You can get that just as readily as you can Wi-Fi, which you don't need. It's operating 24 hours a day in your house. But it's convenient. We've been suckered into living with something which is poisoning our bodies slowly, without awareness on our part, but it's happening on a regular basis. Automobiles, they're selling them now with Wi-Fi and connections and all that happy jazz. So you get into the closed space of a car and you've got an intense area of exposure. Now the latest is this 5G thing with the poles. 5G is very intense. Now I've come across something in the papers. I have about 1,000 sheets of paper. More. That pick up on what is going on. Lost thread here for a second. You can, if you know what you're being exposed to, you can attempt to deal with it to avoid that. Now, legally, it's being shoved down our throats. We can't fight the government. They passed this stuff in advance, and they're shoving it down our throats. But somewhere in the legislation, there's the word health. This stuff is not supposed to affect our health, but it is. That's the one place we have where we can fight them and go take an argument with them in terms of how it affects our health. But this is not going to happen unless the public is aware of it. So I'm asking the board, what can you do to help alert the public, citizens of the township, the parents of kids in school, school administrators, about cell phones? See, it's not like there's an instant effect. It's not instant. Cancerous tissue develops as a result of cell damage. I've had bladder cancer. Lucky, my wife had about 10 feet of her gut removed. She was lucky because it hadn't spread for her, it hadn't spread for me. So they were able to get it all, and we avoided some of the nasties of cancer treatment. But we're prone to this. So I'm pleading with the board to look at what legal aspects you have, what things can be done. We're spending money on a large edifice, what's going on Paper Mill Road. Well, I don't know, maybe a few bucks can go towards public relations with the community. Publish information. Get to the teachers to see to it that cell phones are turned off in classrooms and on the school buses. There's more thinking that needs to go into this. I haven't cornered the market on it, but I'm pleading with you guys to consider that you have some power in the community to do something to help protect us from the government. This is part of the greed, this is part of the corruption. I mean, why does EPA have to be sued? Just in the past week, I heard that 9 members of the EPA board have been fired under our new administration. A lot of firings going on. And big business is being moved in. Big business is killing us. That has to be considered if we don't do something about it. I don't have all the answers. I don't even...
Well, thank you very much, and I'll address some of the things you brought up. First of all, I want to thank you. You know a lot more than we do. You've been studying this for a long time. You gave us materials that we have on our book, and hopefully we've all read. And you understand where we're in as far as this ordinance, that this isn't us embracing it, it's us doing what we have to do. As far as your big request, which is that we do education, we can do that. We have a commission called the Environmental Advisory Commission that looks at things like this, that looks at everything from invasive plants to stormwater to, they've done work with indoor air quality and things that this would fall under that. And so Commissioner Wilson's the liaison. I would ask that he bring it up at that meeting. They write articles that are in the Springfield Sun. So that's certainly the way to get an education program. Unfortunately, that's the environmental stuff is where we actually have a commission that does that. You may want to go to one of their meetings and talk to them about it. So you could talk to Pete. What are you? The
Fourth Wednesday every month at the library, 7 o'clock.
Which Wednesday?
Fourth Wednesday of the
This
month.
room?
No,
In the
no,
library.
The library, our
Where
library.
the church was?
Church, yes.
Yes.
Church, yes.
Okay.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
And then as far as the school buses and the schools, that's the school board. You need to talk to a school board member about that. We don't set that policy. But I know it's a concern, and I know that schools have taken different approaches.
Well, we need to get to the parents. See, that's...
But if you want the school to say, make them check their phone, I know Cheltenham, because of the problems they're having, they're looking at that. They're doing it for a different reason of getting people to check their phones at the door. That's because it doesn't really matter why they're doing it.
Okay.
But that's the school. We don't legislate that. But so you might want to talk to a school board member. And I don't know whether they've done anything or looked at it.
I talked to your school superintendent,
Well,
and
that's a good place too. Yeah.
and her point was that, well, they're not allowed to use them in school.
But they still have them in the right?
That's my point.
Right. So to you, that doesn't make much difference. Yeah.
Okay, I gave her a packet
Yeah.
of the information, and she hasn't gotten back to me at all.
Yeah. Well, if you want to go above her, there are 9 school board members that she has to answer to, and they probably have public comment you could do at their meetings and try and force a little discussion of the issue. But it's not for us to run the school board. So, but thank you. You know, you certainly know a lot about this, and we appreciate that.
I made my point.
You did. You made it well, and we appreciate that. Do we have any other comment? Yes. Judy, can you want to come down and say who you are? And motion for the meeting.
Judith Patitucci, 101 East Wissahickon Avenue. I was here in April, and I mentioned briefly that I am 500 feet within the cell tower. I've lived in, I'm at 101 East Wissahickon. I've lived in Flower Town for 30 years. I also had a house in New York for 10 years, so I've been a homeowner for 40 years. The reason why I am here is I go back to 2001 when Comcast had the wire going to the cell tower. At that point, I had a neighbor, actually, that kind of put a building up with breaking their building code, but that's a separate issue. But the reason why I say it was kind of weird was he actually had wires raised from the Comcast and the Verizon with the Picos. This is before all the fiber optics with all the other things. And then he went and changed the cabling and then re-rose them again. And the second time, it wasn't a Comcast truck that came out to raise a Comcast wire. It was an Adelphia cable. And the only reason I bring that up, I know you're talking wireless, and I know you're talking that the antennas were not something that you're going to deal with, because we're going to deal with the poles that are coming in. That was 2001. But my concern is, in 2008, I was with the zoning, and I told them that I was a little upset with when the antenna people came in for whatever it was, Metro PCS. And I made it very clear. I said, are you going... I actually was in 2007 before the 2008 meeting. It was 2007, and that was 2008 with the zoning, because it was right around the holiday time. And I said, are you going to have any wires, transformers, or pipes? Oh no, we have the tree. We have the tree, and we have sprockets. Well, lo and behold, 2008 comes around. I come back from a nursing job early, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I look around, and there's those little tabs with little grooves in it, like you put your tomato steaks together, or a paper bag or something. There are about 100 or 200 around. And so I decided to call for law enforcement to see what was going on. And also, I noticed that they were doing the Synesis wire to the cell tower. Now, by this time, it's not Comcast, it's AT&T. The officer said not to worry, in fact, there might be papers in the ballpark and all these different things, and, it could have been anything. And I said, but there's this truck, which was not clearly marked. It said ROONEY, but it was not on like both sides, and they had been doing farming of this Synesis wire. Well, lo and behold, a couple days later, I found this in my yard, So I'm just saying, I live close to the ball field and everything, and I know you're saying, well, that really has nothing to do with wireless. But at least I remember when there were wires, or then I had sometimes someone have to come out like Verizon because the wires were touching someone's roof that was also with this rearranging of a cabling that was out of conformity, which has really nothing to do with my issuing an inspection for that building, or giving a code approval for that building. But the point of the matter is, these things have gone on, and I just feel that at least when you have people come and they say, Verizon says, oh, well, we can take that wire, we can put it underground through your yard. Well, then I don't have a rose garden, But I'm saying, you really can't win on this, because I live very close to and I commend you for talking about the fireworks, because there are people that want to have fireworks. I live near the baseball diamond, and when they want to have them, they're going to have them. But, it's a question of trespass, and the right of the way is becoming the wrong of the way. It's not the right of the way anymore. It's becoming anybody who wants to do anything. I was gracious for years before the shopping center. If the kids had a baseball uniform, they were going to that diamond, boy, they could sure go. But the thing came up, the horse was boarded up. We even tried to let children go through so they wouldn't get hit on the street on Bethlehem Pike. But then things changed. Everybody cuts down the trees. Nobody's going to be accountable for the trees on the township property. Here, I'm the one that's got more trees than anybody, and I've been there for 30 years, and it cost me a lot of money. and I've had to wait now, and now my trees are too big because there's all this building around. And some of the building is an extensive amount of building that I think for the code officer, he should go around and see how much stonework is being put in after he goes and sees the cubic footage of the original structure and see what else is around it. But I think that it's a question of, and just by the attendance here, I think it's a disgrace. I volunteered my time at St. Genevieve at the corner for years for no pay because I thought children were important, because I thought the men who were putting up poles and wires were important. And everyone's important. Everyone's job is important. But I do agree with Dr. Tucker here, and I do think that, by having all these random poles, you create animosity from side to side. I know how I felt when I saw an Adelphia truck go and in the pole on my property, and I come home and I see all this stuff. I know that one day there was a Sunesis wire right over where that garden path is, right where the weddings are, before Halligan took over. There was this huge thing hanging. Did anybody do anything about it but me? I went to Comcast.
Mr. President.
On Apollo.
Point of order.
Yes.
On Apollo Road.
Focus on the issue of
we
the
were-
public hearing.
Okay, I'm just saying,
I apologize, but
I'm just simply saying, you're talking about Comcast, you're talking about wireless. If you remember where the wires are, you are going to remember at least where the damage is happening. Dr. Tucker talked about that you can't see these waves of damage. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying it means trespassing when people keep coming up to put up poles. You did say you're going to get the poles proved, right? They have to come to you to see where these poles are going to go. These people.
correct.
Okay. Well, I want to make it very clear. I don't live too far away, and I hope that you will remember all that I've been through. And I have one neighbor that's gone and seen the things that's so close to all these areas where the children are coming to and from the ballpark, where something's hanging that's going to trip a child or strangle a child. I'm the only one that's coming. That's all I have to say. I'm sorry to be so upset about it, but you can only take so much. And I kept to the 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other comments or testimony or questions from the audience? I turn it back to the board. Do we have any questions or testimony from the board at this point? And again, I remind everybody that we'll come back to this on a vote if we want. But I remind you that what we're doing here is regulating them as much as we can. This isn't being done to empower things. It's being done to empower us to the maximum. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to close this public hearing related to amending the Wireless Communication Facilities Ordinance and open a public hearing to consider the transfer of a liquor license from Abington Township to 909 East Willow Grove Avenue, Winmore. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion if you
Do we
want.
have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. So, okay, we are now into the next hearing. This public hearing is being held in compliance with Pennsylvania Act 141 of 2000 and Act
Judy,
10
is that your folder? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No,
on the table.
Or is that the press folder?
it's a press.
I'm sorry, thank you.
In Act 10 of 2002, amending the Pennsylvania Liquor Code to allow for an intermunicipal transfer of a retail restaurant license from one municipality to another municipality in the same county. The legal requirements associated with the public hearing procedures have been met by one, receiving an official request to conduct the public hearing from Paul L. Heron, Esquire, on behalf of Enza Winmore LLC, dated March 28, 2017, and two, notice of public hearing was published in the Springfield Sun issues of April 23 and 30, 2017. Procedurally, please note that for those in attendance in an official court report, do we have a court reporter here?
No, you don't need one.
No.
Oh, so I don't need to read that.
I can try.
Anyone interested in addressing the board during the public hearing must come to the front of the room, provide their name and address, and if applicable, affiliation as it relates to the proceedings. The board will first hear the presentation from Enza Winmore LLC on the transfer of the PA LCB license, then open the hearing for public comment, and finally render a decision at the conclusion of the public comment. So at this point, I will call on Paul Heron, Esquire. Sir, thank you for your patience.
Mr. President, members of the board. My name is Paul Heron, and I'm on behalf of Enza Winmore LLC, which is seeking the board's approval for transfer of a restaurant liquor license out of this municipality, in fact, from Abington into this municipality. And I believe that the board is familiar with this project, so I don't think it's quite necessary for me to provide a lot of detail, except to tell you that what's proposed is a restaurant which is relatively high-end. It's an Italian concept. The folks that are going to be running the restaurant are experienced restaurateurs, have other restaurants which are successful in the area, in the city, and other places. And the idea is for a family-friendly restaurant with a focus on the food, not so much the alcoholic beverages. They are not intending to have a restaurant which focuses on a bar, but rather on a restaurant, which, as I say, is family-friendly. And again, without going into all the details, because as I say, I think you're familiar with it, and I understand that this meeting perhaps has gone a little longer than was originally anticipated. But we believe that this project is a benefit to the community, and having the liquor license is certainly something that we very much want. It's an expensive proposition to acquire a license like this, and as I say, I think it's a benefit to all. At present, it's my understanding, and I can represent to the board, that the present quota is for 6 licenses in Springfield Township. There are 9 retail licenses, no licenses in safekeeping, however. So that's the reason why we're seeking to move a new license into the township.
Because if they're less than 6, you can come in automatically.
Correct.
Because we're over it,
We need the approval of the township. And
Paul, can you just explain what your license allows your restaurant to do? There's a difference between an eatery license and a D license.
Yeah, it's a restaurant liquor license which permits the sale of beer, wine, and alcohol. It also permits the sale of takeout beer to the extent that the township permits that. I'm not exactly sure whether the township has any restrictions. In addition, because it's a restaurant liquor license, you're required to have food. You can't just be a bar which does not serve food. An eating place retail license is another retail license which permits only the sale of beer, does not permit the sale of alcohol and wine. So that ours is a full-service liquor license.
And it's coming from an existing restaurant?
It's coming from a restaurant which is currently closed, which was located in Abington Township.
And they were a regular full-service eatery restaurant?
Correct. Correct.
Are there any further questions or comments from the board about this?
I have a question. I'm not that familiar with what was proposed from the operational side.
Yes.
But will there be outside dining?
You know what, I have one of the principals, Lawrence Saul.
Please, Commissioners.
Sure.
Lawrence Saul, 1228 Lakemont Road, Villanova, Pennsylvania. I'm one of the partners with regards to Zavino Hospitality. You may know us. We already operate 4 restaurants inside the city of Philadelphia, as well as we'll be opening Bryn Mawr within the next 2 weeks. We recently opened.
Are you in Whole Foods down the city?
We are not in Whole Foods down in the city. We're 13th and Sansom, if that helps from a geography perspective. A little bit of background, I've been in food and beverage for 31 years, the Coca-Cola company globally. I ran Domino's Pizza International for 7 years as both the chief marketing officer and the head of Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, and subsequently moved back to the United States to join Aramark and take them public in 2012. My experience in food and beverage is pretty outstanding and long. At least my mom thinks so. This restaurant is a high-end restaurant, just like you saw in our facilities in the city. If you don't have a chance to partake, please let me know, and we'll make sure you have a table waiting for you. That's not bribe. That's just hard to get a seat. It's so really hard to get seats in our restaurants.
Reservation table 10.
We're delighted we're delighted to actually move into this community. It is a new concept for us. We already have two concepts. One is called Tradici, the other one is called Zavino. One is very strong in Mediterranean Italian, the other is much stronger in rustic Italian. This will be a melding of the two, very much family style. There will be a bar, normal business hours, and we are by code, I believe, allowed approximately 8 seats, and we will fulfill whatever code requirements that are dictated to us. So,
8 seats outside.
you had asked about outside seating, specifically 8 seats outside.
I was going to say, small restaurant.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a good profitable restaurant, 8 seats inside.
Initially, you're going to license the outside as well?
Yes, I believe we'll also be seeking an extension, well, not an extension, but to license the outside.
So you don't have to get an extension, it'll be there?
Correct.
It will be there already.
Yeah, initially.
Once that's done, make the application.
Correct.
Thank you.
And just so you're aware, the requirement, the minimum requirement for seating in a restaurant with a restaurant liquor license is 30. So the 8 is not going to fly if that was the entirety of the restaurant.
Your lenders would feel the same way, I think.
Yes, First Trust would not be that happy with us at that point.
Great, well, that's exciting. Are there any other questions or comments?
I have one. What are some of the other facilities that you operate in Philadelphia?
Sure. We operate Zavino Hospitality. Under that roof is on 13th Street, a Zavino location. Catty corner to that, also on 13th Street, if you're familiar with the area, we operate a Tradici restaurant. On Drexel's campus, under the auspices of American Campus Communities that built the new Drexel residential and academic buildings, we operate another Zavino. In the District of Columbia, between DuPont Circle and Foggy Bottom, we operate a Tradici in the Hotel St. Gregory, owned by Hersha Hospitality, Philadelphia REIT. And then effectively, almost immediately, on East Lancaster Avenue in Bryn Mawr, we will be opening another Tradici within the next few weeks.
Great.
We're under construction in Kansas City and multiple other locations.
Well, thank you for picking us. We have been through this before, most recently in the different context of 2 supermarkets and the movie tavern, but we've done the more normal ones when we understand the legal framework, which is when we have a full house and people don't want it, most of the reasons they'd want us to say, no, we're not allowed to do that anyway. You can't do it because it's going to hurt the neighbor or any of that. I don't sense much opposition here. Maybe when we open the floor, there's nobody else in the room. That's a good sign. But are there any questions or comments from the board? And is there anybody else in the audience that would like to make a comment?
If I would, Chairman, I would offer up, I think you'll be quite proud of the transformation, not only of the restaurant, but the village that it's establishing. Having lived in Europe the last 9 years of my life, it's really going to be a marquee for your area. And congratulations for approving it. It's going to be cool.
Well, we've worked hard to improve the Windmore Business District, and I think the project and you as a tenant will be a big asset to the community and to property values. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Back to my script. That's it, right? Sorry. Thank you and all members of the community for making their presentation and positions known to the Board of Commissioners. At this point, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing related to the transfer of a liquor license from Abington Township to 909 East Willow Grove Avenue, Windmore, and to reconvene the business meeting.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote. So now we're back in the meeting, and we're going to go one step back to the wireless. And at this point, I would entertain a motion to enact ordinance number 951, an ordinance amending the regulations for wireless communications facilities. Anyone want to do that?
I'll do it.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
You want to stay for 30 more seconds and hear your vote?
Yeah, it's going to be within a minute. Any further questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Finally, I would be willing to entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 1429, a resolution authorizing the transfer of the PA LCB restaurant liquor license number R17266 from 11 Christie Inc., Abington Township, Montgomery County to Enza Windmore LLC, 909 East Willow Grove Avenue, Windmore, Springfield Township, Montgomery County. Does somebody want to make that motion?
I will.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record him as unanimous vote. Thank you. And
Good night. Thank you.
that concludes our agenda, and I would open to any public comment from the floor. There being none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second? Second. We will, before we adjourn, the board will have a brief executive session at this point. Is that what I'm supposed to say? Okay.
But we will not be back.
And we will not be back, but we're adjourning.
Yes, so.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned, and please stick around when the crowd pulls out. Others.